Okay, so get ready because today we're going to shrink our goals and really maximize those gains.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, so we're diving deep into this episode of the Growth Lounge podcast.
Okay.
And their whole idea is that they're talking about how small changes can actually lead to huge personal growth.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of us, I think we kind of get overwhelmed by these big, massive life overhauls.
Right.
That we feel like, we should be doing this, we should be doing that.
Totally.
But what if I told you that these tiny little tweaks
Yeah.
can be like the secret weapon?
Interesting.
Have you ever felt like you're stuck or like discouraged because you thought change had to be like this big dramatic all or nothing thing?
For sure.
Well, today I think we're going to kind of shift your perspective on that a little bit.
Love it.
So, so it's really interesting to me how a lot of times I think we overlook this power of consistency.
Absolutely.
We're kind of drawn to that idea of like overnight transformations, right?
Yeah. The quick fix.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
The quick fix. But like lasting change, I think, is really built, habit by habit.
It really is. It's like building a house brick by brick. You can't just, magically wish it into existence.
Right. And the Growth Lounge really emphasized that point.
Yeah.
And it made me think about the psychology behind that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, logically, I can get that, okay, the small wins add up.
Yeah.
But like, is there something more to it than that?
Totally. I think there's a big psychological component because think about it. Every time you have a small win,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how insignificant it might seem in the moment.
Yeah.
It reinforces this belief that you're capable of change.
Right.
So then that belief fuels more motivation, it reduces that feeling of being overwhelmed, and then all of a sudden it creates this positive feedback loop.
Oh, wow.
And you know what happens? Then it actually makes sticking to those small changes feel easier and more empowering.
Interesting.
It's not a chore anymore.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So how does this play out in real life? Okay, good question.
Because I know, like, the Growth Lounge threw out some examples, like 5 minutes of daily reflection or keeping a gratitude journal.
Right.
Are those really things that can, like, be game changers?
They can be, and they're great examples because they illustrate a really important point, which is that these seemingly small actions can often create ripple effects in other areas of your life.
I see.
So, for example, you take that 5 minutes of reflection.
Yeah.
If you do that consistently, it can improve your self-awareness, and then that can lead to better decisions, less reactivity, and even stronger relationships. Because you're more in tune with yourself. You're more in tune with other people. It's like planting a tiny seed that grows into this whole network of positive change.
I like that, the ripple effect. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder, like, what tiny habits I'm already doing
Oh, yeah.
that maybe have, like, a bigger impact than I even realize.
Totally.
What about you? Are there any, like, small things that you do consistently that have maybe led to some unexpected benefits?
One that comes to mind is just taking a short walk every day.
Uh-huh.
It's not a huge thing, but it helps me physically, and it also clears my head.
Right.
And I often find that I get creative ideas when I'm walking that I can then bring back to my work.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're sold on the why of small changes.
Yeah.
But the Growth Lounge also really stressed this point that growth doesn't have to be this huge, daunting mountain to climb.
Right. It's about taking those small steps.
Right. How do we even pick that one thing to start with?
Okay.
You know, when there's so many possibilities.
That's a great question. And a lot of people get stuck there because they feel overwhelmed.
Right.
So I think instead of trying to change everything at once, what you want to do is focus on one specific area of your life where you'd like to see improvement.
Okay.
So, is it your health? Is it your relationships? Is it your productivity?
Right.
Once you've narrowed it down to that one area, then you can start brainstorming tiny, ridiculously achievable actions that move you in that direction.
I see.
We're not talking about massive leaps here. We're talking about baby steps.
Baby steps.
Tiny little steps forward.
So like, if my goal is to be more mindful,
Yeah.
instead of saying I'm going to meditate for an hour every day,
Right.
maybe I start with like 5 minutes of just like focused breathing.
Exactly. And you know what? Don't forget to celebrate those small wins.
Yeah.
That's really important because it reinforces that positive feedback loop that we talked about earlier. Every little victory, no matter how small it is proof that you're on the right track.
Right.
And remember, this isn't about being perfect.
Yeah.
Setbacks are going to happen.
Of course.
They're totally normal.
Yeah.
Don't let them derail. You just get back on track with your next small step.
Right. So this all ties back to the power of consistency.
Yes.
It's not about intensity.
Mm-hmm.
It's about showing up day after day.
absolutely.
Even when you don't feel like it.
Even when you don't feel like it.
And those small actions over time,
Yeah.
I think they really do create this amazing journey of growth.
They do, and it's actually something that elite athletes and coaches call the aggregation of marginal gains.
Oh, wow.
It's this idea that small incremental improvements, when applied consistently across all areas, can lead to dramatic results over time.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So I guess my question for you, listeners out there, is what small change will you make today
Good question.
that could have this ripple effect on your life in the coming, weeks, months, or even years?
I love that.
What's that one small step?
It might be something like setting aside 5 minutes to stretch.
Right.
Reading a page of a book.
Yeah.
Expressing gratitude to someone you care about.
Absolutely.
Think about what you've been putting off and what small step you can take today to make it happen.
Yeah.
And just remember, even the tiniest actions that really can spark big change.
I love it.
So
that's inspiring.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go make a change.
Me too.
Awesome.
Awesome.